they were symptom-free, but now officials say 2 people evacuated from China to Germany on Saturday are in fact infected with the new coronavirus. They were among a group of more than 120 passengers flown to Frankfurt on a military plane from Wuhan. That's the Chinese city at the center of the outbreak. The evacuees are now in quarantine in a medical facility. They will be there for 2 weeks. The infected are 2 German citizens. They are being treated in a hospital in Frankfurt where doctors say they are doing well. On Sunday, Germany's health minister defended the decision to carry out that evacuation.
At
departure in China, we had to and were able to assume that symptom-free compatriots were returning to us. They were still symptom-free in Frankfurt, and in that sense, they seemed healthy. But incubation time means, in a situation like this, that what we've seen can change relatively quickly. That shows exactly why the quarantine was right.
Well, one of those people who was on that plane joins us now. Yannick Weiss is a German student who is living in China. He's now, in fact, under quarantine at an airbase in southwestern Germany. Yannick, first of all, thank you for speaking with us. I wanted to ask you, how's your health? How are you feeling? I mean, this has been quite the ordeal for you and everybody who was on that plane.
Well, hello back, and yeah, I'm feeling very well. I have no problems, and nearly everybody I know here from the German group is also very, very well. Of course, this is a difficult situation for all of us. This type of quarantine, I think nobody expected this when we started to go to China. And of course, we are fine and we are well treated, and of course here's quite a lot of medical support. So if something would happen, we got an immediate help and an evacuation to a real hospital in Frankfurt.
What's that quarantine like? So you're currently at a German military base. What are the facilities like? Do you feel well taken care of? And how are you coping personally?
Well, right now we are here at a military base. This building is separated from the other buildings. We have a fence around our house, so there's no way that a normal soldier or somebody else can join us in our house, but also we are not allowed to leave our house. Of course, we are allowed to go outside, but we are not allowed to pass the fence. But the facility here is very, very good. Everybody of us has a single room. We want to prevent an outbreak here, also, of course, in the facility. So this kind of isolation is, I think, the best opportunity to manage this thing.
Yannick, tell me about the evacuation itself. You were one of around 100 people flown out of China. At the time, you were not aware that a couple of people on the plane were infected, right?
Well, of course, this is a little risk that is always there. But we are all wearing masks during the evacuation in the plane for all the time. So I think the risks that we infect us there is not very high. But of course, it's quite possible. And that's why we have here this kind of quarantine, because I think it's necessary, because nobody can say, am I healthy or not?
Now, you were studying in Wuhan, right? What was life like in the city once this outbreak happened? What did you experience?
Well, of course, I was there for half a year, and at the beginning, everything was stunning for me. It's a living city, 11 million people are living there, and suddenly, all of these 11 million people, nobody is at the streets anymore. You have giant routes which are completely empty. You have malls and nobody is inside. There are no cars, there are no walkers or something else. Most of the shops are completely closed, and only some supermarkets are open left. There are enough groceries and everything else, that's right. But for me as a student, I don't have the opportunities to cook for myself very much. So yeah, at the last time I eat quite a lot of instant noodles and vegetables and fruits. And of course, I'm fine that I can eat no better food here.
Now, Yannick, I mean, as those numbers started to increase, the number of people infected, the death toll rose. How did that make you feel? How scared were you?
Of course, it's very, very sad that the death toll is increasing. But to be honest, I think that there's so many infected people and not so many infected people. If you compare it to normal influenza, I think, we should be a little bit careful about this, but I think it's not that dramatic.
Yannick Weiss, he's a German student. He was recently evacuated from China, from Wuhan, due to that coronavirus outbreak. You sound very calm. Thank you so much for speaking with us. We really appreciate you taking the time.
You're welcome.
This patient's health took an unexpected turn for the better. The 70-year-old Chinese woman came down with the coronavirus, which has already claimed hundreds of lives. But the virus vanished from her body after doctors in Thailand administered an unusual cure. This is the standard treatment that we've used with patients. It's a mixture of anti-HIV drugs and a flu drug, which China used to cure MERS patients. The mixture of both treatments shows vast improvement 48 hours after applying the treatment, and the result turns negative. Further tests will determine whether this cocktail will put an end to the coronavirus epidemic. China is struggling to contain the disease. The army has flown almost 800 medical staff and 60 tons of supplies to Wuhan, the city at the epicenter of the outbreak. After receiving the order, we immediately began to make arrangements for the mission, carefully selecting crews and coming up with 4 different flight plans. Considering the high risk of infection, we also took measures to protect ourselves and provide a safe cabin space. More than 300 people have died from the virus in China. Almost 15,000 infections have been registered across the country. In Wuhan and the surrounding Hubei province, hospitals are being built in record time to absorb the strain on the health sector. Outside Hubei, the government is desperate to slow the virus's spread. In the city of Wenzhou, every household is limited to 1 shopping trip by person every 2 days. Public transport is disinfected, but next week, millions of Chinese will return to work after an extended Lunar New Year holiday to put such measures to the test.
Well, for more now, we go over to Matthias Berlinger, our correspondent in Beijing. Matthias, the number of coronavirus cases keeps rising in China. More and more people are dying. Is this going to continue getting worse before it gets better?
That's what most people expect. The numbers are rising. The numbers are rising at a faster pace. Most of the cases that we see, the new cases that are registered, are still inside Hubei province, inside Wuhan mostly. And the cases outside of this area are rising at a slower pace. So that gives the hope that the virus might be contained inside this quarantine zone. But this is far from sure, because there is a long incubation period, and we might as well see the numbers taking off in other parts of China in the next few days.
I understand a new purpose-built hospital has just been finished in Wuhan. How is that expected to help in tackling the coronavirus outbreak?
The new hospital has more than 1,000 beds. They're badly needed, considering that several thousands of people in the city have been diagnosed with the virus. And we keep hearing reports about people being not able to get their diagnosis because test kits are lacking and other admission problems in hospitals. So these beds are badly needed, but the Wuhan government has stepped up other measures as well. So, for example, they have announced, we don't know really what they are really, but they have announced to have quarantine zones where people who are sick but who are not as sick that they need to go into the hospital, where they have to stay and will possibly be taken by the police into these quarantine zones. The military has stepped in helping to distribute food and other supplies to supermarkets. So we are seeing everything we hear from Wuhan is pointing to a severe emergency.
Well, this health emergency, Matthias, is also having a massive economic impact on China. How is that making itself felt?
Today is the day where, according to initial plans, the holiday, the New Year holiday, should have ended. China is pretty much in a lockdown economically around this time of the year because of the holidays. But as you can see, all these shops here have not opened today. The government has extended the holiday. So if until now economically there was some kind of a lucky coincidence that this crisis fell onto a holiday season, now we are going to feel the real reasons when production, when commercial activity will not pick up after the holiday.
Matthias, thank you very much. That was correspondent Matthias Berlinger in Beijing.